The crystal towers of New Zephyr burned against the starlit sky. Princess Vera stood on the highest balcony of the royal palace, watching her world die. Red plasma bolts streaked through the atmosphere as Craxi warships hammered the planetary shields. Each impact sent ripples of light across the energy barrier that protected her people's capital city. "Your Highness," came a voice behind her. General Kane, the head of the Zephyrian military, approached with heavy steps. His usually perfect uniform was wrinkled and stained. Dark circles hung beneath his eyes like shadows. "The Outer Rim colonies have fallen. Sector 7 went silent an hour ago." Vera did not turn around. She kept watching the sky burn. How many refugees made it out? Perhaps half. Maybe less. Kane's voice was hollow. "The Craxi are not taking prisoners this time. They are consuming everything in their path." The Craxi horde had swept across 3 star systems in 2 months. They moved like a plague of metal and violence, leaving nothing but empty worlds behind them. Every species they encountered faced the same choice: surrender and become slaves, or fight and die. Most chose to fight. All of them lost. The Zephyrians had been confident at first. Their technology was among the most advanced in the galaxy. Their ships could bend space and time. Their weapons could tear apart matter at the atomic level. Their shields could stop entire fleets. For the first week of the war, it seemed like the Craxi would break against Zephyrian defenses like waves against a mountain. Then the Craxi adapted. Their ships began copying Zephyrian technology. Their weapons started cutting through energy shields. Their tactics changed faster than any organic mind should have been able to process. Within days, the unstoppable Zephyrian fleet was running for home. "The Council is waiting," Kane said quietly. Vera finally turned from the burning sky. "What do they want now? More evacuation plans? Another discussion about surrender terms? There is a new proposal. Something unexpected." Kane paused. "The humans have sent an ambassador." Vera raised an eyebrow. Humans were new to galactic politics. Their home system had only been discovered 5 years ago, tucked away in a forgotten corner of space. Most species considered them primitive. They had no advanced technology. Their ships used basic fusion engines. Their weapons were simple projectile systems. They had not even developed faster-than-light communication. "What could humans possibly offer us?" Vera asked. "That is what we need to find out." The council chamber was a vast room carved from a single piece of living crystal. The walls pulsed with soft blue light that normally brought peace to those who gathered there. Today, the light seemed dim and cold. 12 of the most powerful Zephyrians in the Empire sat around a circular table, their faces grim. At the center of the circle stood a human. Vera had seen images of humans before, but never one in person. He was shorter than most Zephyrians, with brown hair and calm brown eyes. His skin was darker than theirs, weathered by some sun they had never seen. He wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations or rank insignia. Everything about him seemed ordinary. "Your Highness," the human said, bowing slightly. "I am Ben Torres, representative of the Terran Federation. Thank you for agreeing to see me." His voice was steady and quiet. He showed no sign of being intimidated by the crystal chamber or the powerful beings around him. Vera found this curious. Most species were nervous when meeting Zephyrian royalty. "Ambassador Torres," Vera said, taking her seat at the head of the table. "General Kane tells me you have a proposal." "I do." Ben reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device. He placed it on the table, and a holographic display appeared above it. "We are aware of your situation. The Craxi horde has destroyed 70% of your outer colonies. Your main fleet is scattered. Your homeworld is under siege." The hologram showed the current state of the war. Red markers indicated Craxi positions. Blue markers showed remaining Zephyrian forces. There were far more red than blue. This information is classified, said Counselor Dex, his voice sharp with suspicion. How did you obtain it? Ben looked at him calmly. We have our methods. Are you spying on us? Demanded another counselor. We are gathering information about a threat that affects all organic life in this galaxy, Ben replied. The Craxi do not stop at one system. When they finish with you, they will move on to the next target. Eventually, they will reach human space. So you want our help to prepare for your own defense, Vera said. No, Your Highness. We want to help you win this war. Silence filled the chamber. Several counselors exchanged glances. General Kane leaned forward in his chair. With respect, Ambassador, he said, humanity has 12 warships. The Craxi have thousands. Your technology is centuries behind ours. What could you possibly do against an enemy that we cannot stop? Ben touched the device again. The hologram changed, showing technical specifications for human ships and weapons. The numbers were not impressive. Their vessels were small and simple. Their weapons had limited range and power. Their shields were barely adequate for basic defense. You are correct, Ben said. Our technology is primitive compared to yours. Our ships are few in number. By every logical calculation, we should not be able to stand against the Craxi. Then why are you here? Vera asked. Ben looked directly at her. Because humans do not always follow logical calculations. That is not an answer, Counselor Dex said. It is the only answer I can give you right now. Ben touched the device again, and the hologram disappeared. I have been authorized to offer a formal alliance between the Terran Federation and the Zephyrian Empire. What are your terms? Vera asked. Marriage. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. Several counselors gasped. General Kane's eyes went wide. Vera felt her heart skip a beat. You want to marry me, she said. If you are willing, Ben replied. A formal union between our peoples. Humanity offers full military support against the Craxi. In return, we ask for safe passage through Zephyrian space and future trade agreements. This is ridiculous, Counselor Dex stood up. You are asking our princess to marry a primitive alien for the promise of help from a dozen ships. It is insulting. It is practical, Ben said quietly. Marriage alliances have been used throughout galactic history to formalize agreements between species. It creates bonds that cannot easily be broken. And what if your dozen ships fail? Asked another counselor. What if the Craxi destroy your entire fleet in the first battle? Our princess will be married to a member of an extinct species. Ben was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer but somehow more intense. If our ships fail, it will not matter who anyone is married to. The Craxi will consume everything. Vera looked around the table. She could see doubt and fear in every face. Her people were proud. They had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 1,000 years. The idea of accepting help from a primitive species was hard for them to accept. But she could also see the tactical displays floating in her mind. The red markers growing larger every day. The blue markers growing smaller. How long do we have to decide? She asked. The Craxi main fleet will reach this system in 18 hours, Ben said. If you are going to accept our offer, the ceremony should take place soon. Ceremony? Vera asked. The marriage ceremony. It needs to be broadcast on all channels so both our peoples can witness the alliance. This will also let the Craxi know that humanity has joined the war. You want to get married in the middle of a battle? Counselor Dex sounded horrified. I want to get married before the battle, Ben corrected. Once it starts, there may not be another opportunity. Vera stood and walked to the great window that looked out over the city. The planetary shield still held, but she could see cracks forming in the energy barrier. Bright lines of stress ran across the dome like fractures in ice. Her people were evacuating the outer districts. Long lines of air vehicles moved toward the spaceports. She thought about her options. She could refuse the human offer and continue fighting with what forces she had left. The Zephyrian fleet might last another week. Maybe 2 if they were lucky. Eventually, the Craxi would break through, and her people would die. She could order a full evacuation. Load everyone onto ships and run for neutral space. But the Craxi were faster now. They had captured enough Zephyrian technology to upgrade their own vessels. Most of the refugee fleets would be caught and destroyed. She could surrender. The Craxi had offered terms before. Her people would become workers in their industrial machine. They would be allowed to live, but they would never be free again. Or she could trust this quiet human with his impossible offer. If I agree, she said, still looking out the window, what guarantee do I have that your people will honor the alliance? My word, Ben said simply. That is not enough, Counselor Dex protested. It is enough for me, Vera turned back to face the table. Ambassador Torres, I accept your proposal. The chamber erupted in arguments. Half the council began shouting objections while the other half demanded details about the alliance. General Kane tried to restore order. Through it all, Ben stood quietly in the center, waiting for the noise to die down. When? Vera asked when the room finally grew quiet. Now, Ben said. My ship has a communication array that can broadcast to both our fleets. The ceremony can be simple. Just the formal words and the exchange of rings. I do not have a ring, Vera said. Ben smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. I brought 2. 3 hours later, Princess Vera of the Zephyrian Empire stood in the communication bay of a human starship. The vessel was smaller than she had expected. The walls were made of plain metal instead of crystal. The lights were white and harsh instead of soft and colored. Everything felt functional and practical. Ben stood beside her, wearing the same gray uniform. He had combed his hair and cleaned his boots, but he still looked like a soldier instead of a groom. 2 human officers served as witnesses. A Zephyrian priest spoke the traditional words through a video link from the planet below. The ceremony lasted 15 minutes. They exchanged simple metal bands. Ben's ring was too large for Vera's finger, but she wore it anyway. When the priest declared them married, Ben kissed her cheek gently. It felt formal and strange, but not unpleasant. It is done, the priest announced across the open communication channel. May the union bring strength to both peoples. Vera looked out through the ship's viewport. 12 human vessels hung in space around them. They looked small and fragile compared to the massive Craxi dreadnoughts that were approaching the edge of the system. She had just married an alien to save her people. She hoped it would be enough. The Craxi fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm made of metal and rage. Vera watched from the bridge of Ben's ship as thousands of enemy vessels materialized at the edge of her home system. Each Craxi dreadnought was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Their escort ships moved in perfect formations, dark shapes against the stars. Signal from the Craxi fleet, reported the human communications officer. Her name was Lisa, and she spoke with the same calm voice that all the humans seemed to use. They want to talk. Put them through, Ben said. He stood beside Vera at the main display screen, his hands clasped behind his back. Even facing an enemy fleet that outnumbered them 1,000 to 1, he showed no sign of fear. The screen flickered, and the image of the Craxi war chief appeared. He was a massive creature, part organic flesh and part mechanical enhancement. Metal plates covered half his face. His eyes glowed red with artificial light. Scars ran across his skin like rivers of old pain. I am Warchief Thane of the Craxi Horde, his voice was like grinding stone. You have 30 minutes to evacuate this system. Any ship that remains will be destroyed. Any world that resists will be consumed. This is your only warning. This is Admiral Torres of the Terran Federation, Ben replied. His voice was steady and quiet, the same tone he had used during their wedding ceremony. We cannot accept those terms. Thane's scarred face twisted into something that might have been a smile. Humans. I have heard of your species. You are new to the galaxy. You do not understand what you face. We understand perfectly. Look around you, human. I command 3,000 ships. You have 12. My warriors have conquered 50 star systems. Your people have never fought a real war. Surrender now, and I will let your species live as slaves. Ben was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his words carried a weight that made Vera's breath catch. Negative. You have threatened our family. The communication channel went silent. Thane stared at the screen with confusion, as if he had not heard correctly. Your family, he said finally. My wife. Her people. They are our family now. We protect our family. Thane began to laugh, a harsh sound like metal scraping against stone. You would die for aliens you met 3 days ago. Yes, Ben said simply. The laughter stopped. Thane leaned closer to his communication device. You are either very brave or very stupid. We are human. The screen went black. Vera turned to look at Ben, but he was already moving toward the command chair. Lisa, send a message to the fleet. Begin Formation 7. All ships, combat ready. Formation 7 confirmed, Lisa replied. Fleet reports ready for combat. Vera moved to stand beside Ben as he settled into the captain's chair. Through the viewport, she could see the other 11 human ships moving into position. They looked impossibly small against the vast Craxi armada. Ben, she said quietly, are you certain about this? He looked at her with those calm brown eyes. The Craxi have destroyed 47 civilizations. Every species that faced them alone was defeated. But no species has ever faced them with human allies. That does not answer my question. I know. Ben touched a control panel on his chair. All ships, this is Admiral Torres. Remember your training. Trust your instincts. Protect each other. And show them what humans can do. The Craxi fleet began to move. 3,000 ships advancing like a wall of death. Their weapons started charging, energy building in massive cannons that could vaporize entire cities. Fighter squadrons launched from the dreadnoughts, small ships that moved in perfect swarms. Contact in 60 seconds, reported the tactical officer. His name was Dave, and like all the other humans, he seemed completely calm despite the approaching disaster. Vera watched the tactical display as red markers swept toward the tiny cluster of blue dots that represented the human fleet. The numbers were insane. 3,000 against 12. It was not a battle. It was an execution. 30 seconds to contact. The human ships began to move. Vera had commanded fleets for 10 years. She understood space combat. Ships moved slowly and carefully, following predictable paths as they maneuvered for position. Battles were fought at long range with energy weapons and guided missiles. Tactics were based on mathematics and careful planning. The humans threw all of that away. Their ships accelerated at speeds that should have turned their crews into liquid. They twisted and spun through space like dancers, following patterns that made no logical sense. When Craxi fighters tried to intercept them, the human vessels simply changed direction in ways that seemed to violate the laws of physics. How are they surviving those turns? Vera whispered. Training, Ben said. And stubbornness. The first exchange of fire lit up space like a firework display. Craxi plasma beams reached out toward the human ships, only to find empty space where their targets had been a moment before. Human projectile weapons fired back, simple kinetic rounds that somehow found their marks despite impossible distances. Enemy fighter squadron destroyed, Dave reported. No damage to our ships. Vera stared at the tactical display. A full squadron of Craxi fighters had been eliminated in the first 30 seconds of battle. These were the same fighters that had torn through Zephyrian interceptors like they were made of paper. How? She asked. Humans are persistence hunters, Ben explained. We evolved chasing prey across vast distances. Our brains are wired to track multiple moving targets while we are also moving. What seems impossible to other species is natural to us. The battle continued, and Vera began to understand that she was witnessing something unprecedented. The human ships moved through the Craxi formation like ghosts, appearing where they were not expected, striking at weak points, disappearing before the enemy could respond. But it was more than just their flying skills. The humans adapted in real time to everything the Craxi threw at them. When the enemy tried new weapons, human engineers modified their shields within minutes. When Craxi ships changed tactics, human captains countered before the enemy could complete their maneuvers. Signal from Craxi Command, Lisa reported. They are demanding to know what technology we are using. Tell them it is not technology, Ben said. It is experience. Vera watched as Ben's ship dove toward the enemy flagship, a massive dreadnought that bristled with enough weapons to destroy a small planet. Craxi defensive fire filled the space around them, but somehow none of it connected. The ship twisted and spun, following a path that seemed random but always kept them just ahead of the targeting systems. Preparing for boarding action, Ben announced, standing up from his chair. Boarding action. Vera could not hide the shock in her voice. That ship has 10,000 crew members. I am not planning to fight all of them, Ben said. He walked toward the exit, pausing to pick up a simple assault rifle from a weapon rack. Just the ones who get in my way. I am coming with you. No. Ben's voice was firm but not harsh. This is human business now. I am your wife. Yes. Which means you need to stay alive, so there is something worth fighting for. Before Vera could argue, Ben was gone, heading toward the ship's boarding pods with a squad of human marines. She turned back to the tactical display, watching as his ship latched onto the Craxi flagship like a parasite. Security feed from the boarding party is available, Lisa said. Would you like to watch? Vera nodded, though part of her was afraid of what she might see. The secondary screen showed helmet camera feeds from the human marines as they cut through the hull of the Craxi ship. The corridors beyond were vast and dark, filled with the sound of approaching footsteps. Hundreds of Craxi warriors were converging on their position. Ben's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. Standard formation. Watch your corners. Remember, they are bigger than us, but they have never fought humans before. The first Craxi warriors appeared at the end of a corridor, massive figures in battle armor that made them look like walking tanks. They charged forward with weapons that fired streams of superheated plasma. The humans simply stepped aside. Vera watched in amazement as Ben and his team moved through the enemy ship like water flowing around rocks. They were smaller than the Craxi, slower in straight-line speed, and armed with simpler weapons. But they moved with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. When one human was threatened, another was already in position to help. When the enemy adapted to their tactics, they changed their approach faster than any computer could calculate. How do they do that? Vera asked. Pack hunting, Dave explained. Humans evolved to hunt in groups. Every member of the team knows what the others are thinking. It is instinct. The camera feeds showed Ben's team moving deeper into the ship, past rooms full of confused Craxi crew members. They were not trying to fight everyone aboard. They had a specific target. The command center, Lisa said. They are heading for the bridge. Vera understood the strategy now. Rather than try to destroy the ship from outside, the humans were going to take control of it from within. It was insane. It was impossible. It was working. The feeds showed Ben standing outside a massive door marked with Craxi symbols. His team set explosive charges while enemy warriors pounded on the other side. Breach in 5 seconds, Ben said. The door exploded inward, and smoke filled the corridor. Craxy officers began firing through the opening, their weapons lighting up the darkness with deadly energy beams. Ben and his team went through the smoke like they could see in complete darkness. The camera feeds showed brief glimpses of the enemy command center, massive control panels, holographic displays showing the battle, dozens of Craxy officers trying to coordinate their fleet. Within minutes, it was over. Craxy flagship under human control, Dave reported. Admiral Torres requests permission to use their communication system. Granted, Vera said. Ben's voice echoed across every ship in the Craxy fleet. This is Admiral Torres. Your command ship belongs to us now. Your war chief is our prisoner. Any ship that continues to attack will be destroyed. The response was immediate. Half the Craxy fleet began firing on their own flagship, trying to destroy it before the humans could use it against them. The other half began to retreat toward the edge of the system. Vera realized she was holding her breath. In less than an hour, 12 human ships had broken a Craxy fleet that outnumbered them by thousands. They had done it not with superior technology or overwhelming force, but with something she was only beginning to understand. They had done it by refusing to accept that it was impossible. War Chief Thane stood in chains aboard his own flagship, his red eyes burning with rage. The massive Craxy warrior had been stripped of his weapons and most of his mechanical enhancements. Even without them, he towered over Ben by nearly 2 feet. His scarred hands could have crushed a human skull like an egg. You think you have won, Thane growled, his voice echoing through the command center. But the Horde will not accept defeat from insects like you. Ben looked up at the alien warlord with the same calm expression he had worn throughout the battle. Your fleet is scattered. Half your ships have retreated. The other half are surrendering to avoid being destroyed by their own allies. The Horde is more than one fleet, Thane spat. When word reaches the core worlds, 100 fleets will come for revenge. Your pathetic species will be erased from existence. Maybe, Ben said. But not today. Vera watched this exchange from the side of the room, still trying to process everything she had witnessed. The impossible battle was over, but she felt like she understood less about humans now than she had before it started. Their ships had moved in ways that defied physics. Their tactics had made no logical sense. And yet they had won. There is another way, Thane said, his voice dropping to a rumble that made the deck plates vibrate. Single combat. You and me. If I win, the Zephyrians surrender and become slaves of the Horde. If you win, the Craxy will withdraw from this sector permanently. No, Vera said immediately, stepping forward. Ben, you cannot seriously consider this. Ben looked at her with those brown eyes that had somehow become familiar in such a short time. Why not? Look at him, she gestured toward the massive alien. He is 3 times your size. Those scars on his body are from hundreds of battles. The mechanical parts in his arms and legs make him faster and stronger than any organic being. This is what he was bred for. And I was bred to be human, Ben said simply. That is not an answer, Vera protested. Thane has killed dozens of champions in single combat. Species across the galaxy have sent their greatest warriors against him. None of them survived. Then maybe it is time someone tried a different approach. Thane began to laugh, the same harsh sound that had echoed through the communication channels during his original surrender demand. The female speaks wisdom, human. I have torn apart creatures that could bend steel with their bare hands. I have defeated warriors with armor that could stop starship weapons. What could a soft little ape possibly do against me? Ben was quiet for a long moment, studying the alien warlord. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made everyone in the room pay attention. I accept your challenge. Ben, no, Vera grabbed his arm. This is madness. You will die, and for what? We have already won the battle. Have we? Ben asked. Thane is right about one thing. When the Horde learns what happened here, they will send more fleets. Eventually, they will send so many ships that even human tactics cannot overcome the numbers. But if I can defeat their greatest champion in single combat, if I can break the legend of Craxi invincibility, other species might find the courage to fight back. Vera stared at him. You are talking about fighting the entire Craxi Empire. I am talking about giving the galaxy hope. 2 hours later, Vera stood in the observation deck of an abandoned space station at the edge of the system. The ancient structure had been built by a race that died out centuries ago, its empty corridors and defunct machinery serving as neutral ground for the duel that would determine the fate of billions. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see both fleets waiting in the darkness. Human ships hung in space like tiny stars, their simple design somehow more beautiful now that she understood what they were capable of. The remaining Craxi vessels formed a dark wall on the opposite side of the station, their weapons powered down but ready to fire if their champion lost. Representatives from a dozen species had come to witness the battle. Word had spread through the galactic communication networks faster than light-speed travel. Everyone wanted to see if the humans who had defeated a Craxi fleet could also defeat a Craxi champion. The duel would take place in the station's main cargo bay, a vast space with gravity generators and atmosphere processors that could support both human and Craxi physiology. Sensor arrays would record every moment of the fight and broadcast it across known space. Vera made her way to the cargo bay, her heart heavy with dread. She had known Ben for only 3 days, but the thought of watching him die felt like a physical weight in her chest. The marriage might have started as a political necessity, but somewhere between the wedding ceremony and the impossible battle, it had become something more personal. The cargo bay was enormous, easily large enough to hold a dozen fighter craft. Ancient support pillars rose from the floor to the ceiling like metal trees. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows across the walls, giving the whole space an eerie, dreamlike quality. Ben stood at one end of the bay, wearing simple combat armor that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced suits other species used. He carried no weapons except a basic knife at his belt. His face was calm, but Vera could see tension in the way he held his shoulders. At the other end of the bay, Thane prepared for battle like a ritual. The Craxi had removed all of his restraints and returned his combat gear. Mechanical enhancers covered his arms and legs, increasing his strength and speed beyond organic limits. Armor plates protected his vital organs. Weapon ports in his cybernetic limbs could deploy blades, projectile launchers, or energy weapons at a moment's notice. "This is insane," General Kane whispered beside Vera. He had come aboard the station with a small delegation of Zephyrian officials. No organic being can defeat a fully equipped Craxi champion. Ben is not just any organic being, Vera said, though she was not sure she believed her own words. A neutral referee, a tall insectoid alien from the Galactic Arbitration Council, stood between the two combatants. The terms have been agreed upon. Single combat to the death or surrender. No weapons except those carried by the combatants themselves. No outside interference. Do both parties understand? Yes, Ben said quietly. I understand that I am about to kill a human, Thane replied, extending wicked-looking blades from his mechanical arms. Let us begin. The referee raised one of its 4 arms. Combat may commence. Thane moved first, crossing the space between them in 3 massive strides. His bladed arms swept down toward Ben's head with enough force to cut through armor plating. It was a finishing move designed to end the fight in seconds. Ben was not there when the blades arrived. He had stepped aside at the last possible moment, moving just far enough to avoid the attack but not so far that he lost his position. Thane's momentum carried him forward, and Ben struck at the joints in his opponent's leg armor with surgical precision. The attack barely scratched Thane's armor, but it served notice that this fight would not be the quick execution the Craxi had expected. Thane spun around, firing projectile weapons from his arm mounts. The cargo bay filled with the sound of gunfire as dozens of explosive rounds sought their target. Ben dove and rolled, using the support pillars as cover while debris rained down around him. He is just delaying the inevitable, someone in the observation area said. The human cannot win with hit-and-run tactics. But Vera was beginning to see something else. Ben was not running from Thane. He was studying him. Every attack the Craxi champion made revealed information about his capabilities, his preferred tactics, the way his cybernetic enhancements functioned. Ben was gathering data like a scientist conducting an experiment. The fight continued for 20 minutes. Thane pressed his attacks with the confidence of a predator who had never met prey he could not kill. His weapon systems cycled through different configurations. Energy beams, projectile weapons, vibrating blades, sonic disruptors. Each attack should have been enough to end the duel. Each attack missed. Ben moved through the cargo bay like he was dancing to music only he could hear. He was smaller than Thane, slower in straight-line speed, and armed with nothing but a simple knife. But he had something the Craxi champion had never encountered before. He would not give up. As the minutes passed, Vera began to notice changes in both fighters. Thane was breathing harder, his attacks becoming less precise. The cybernetic enhancements that gave him superhuman strength were also burning through his energy reserves faster than his organic body could replace them. Ben showed no such limitations. He was wounded, bleeding from a dozen small cuts where Thane's attacks had come close to connecting. But his movements remained steady. His breathing was controlled. His eyes never left his opponent. Impossible, Thane gasped during a brief pause in the fighting. You should be dead. I have hit you 6 times. You have scratched me 6 times, Ben corrected. There is a difference. My weapons can cut through starship armor. But they have to connect first. Thane roared with frustration and launched himself forward in a final desperate assault. All of his weapon systems fired at once, filling the cargo bay with deadly energy. The support pillars began to melt under the onslaught. The floor cracked and buckled. When the barrage ended, Ben stood untouched in the center of the destruction. How? Thane whispered. You fight like a machine, Ben said, walking slowly toward his opponent. Predictable. Logical. Efficient. But war is not logical. War is chaos. And humans are very good at dealing with chaos. Thane tried to raise his weapons, but his power systems were failing. The massive assault had drained his energy reserves completely. His cybernetic enhancements began shutting down one by one, leaving him with only his organic strength. I yield, he said finally, his voice barely audible. Ben stopped walking. What did you say? I said I yield. Thane fell to one knee, his scarred face twisted with shame. You have defeated me. The Craxi will honor the terms of single combat. The observation deck erupted in shocked silence. Vera pressed her hand against the window, hardly believing what she had witnessed. Ben had not defeated Thane through superior strength or advanced technology. He had won through sheer persistence. He had simply refused to lose. Ben walked over to help his fallen opponent stand. The duel is over. The Craxi will withdraw from this sector. They will, Thane agreed. But they will remember what happened here. Other champions will come. They will study your tactics and prepare countermeasures. Let them come, Ben said. Humans will be ready. Later, as the various fleets prepared to depart, Vera found herself alone with Ben in the medical bay of his ship. A human doctor had treated his wounds, but he would carry scars from the duel for the rest of his life. You could have died, she said, sitting beside his bed. Yes, Ben agreed. But I did not. That is not an answer. It is the only answer that matters. Ben looked at her with those calm brown eyes. The galaxy has been afraid of the Craxi for too long. Someone needed to show that they could be beaten. And it had to be you. It had to be someone. It might as well be me. Vera took his hand in hers. The simple metal ring he had given her caught the light from the medical bay's overhead panels. When this started, our marriage was just a political agreement. And now? Now I think I would like to learn more about being married to a human. Ben smiled, the same quiet expression he had worn when they first met. That could be dangerous. Humans tend to get into trouble. I noticed, Vera said. But they also tend to get out of it again. Through the viewport, she could see the Craxi fleet withdrawing toward the edge of the system. Their retreat would send a message across the galaxy. The unstoppable horde had been stopped. The invincible champions could be defeated. Other species would find the courage to resist. And at the center of it all was a quiet human who had refused to accept the impossible, married an alien princess to save her people, and then showed the galaxy what it meant to be human. The war was far from over, but for the first time in years, the galaxy had hope.